Welcome back! It's the start of a brand new year, and it is also the start of a brand new curriculum for IB English. The curriculum changed dramatically over the summer. I went to training for that, and it was quite an experience. And so I thought I would go ahead and tell you a few of the changes, some of the pros and cons, and how it's going to look for those of you who are starting the new IB curriculum, or for those of you who are just interested in how things were different from in your time. Before my training this summer, I went ahead and looked online to see what I could about the curriculum. And I saw a lot of people were really upset about the changes, which made me a bit apprehensive. I really love the IB curriculum and it's a lot of fun to teach, so it made me a little bit concerned. And when I finally got to training, I found that yes, the curriculum is dramatically different, and some of my favorite parts of the old curriculum are no longer here. It's not to say that the new curriculum is bad, it's just very different. And like all change, it takes a little bit to get used to. The good news is that the new curriculum has some really fantastic features that the old curriculum didn't. The new curriculum is wildly flexible and much easier to shape in any way that the teacher desires. And there's also a flexibility about it which could potentially allow for some differentiation between students. It took a lot to wrap my mind around though, and so I spent 3 days at this conference, and every night I went straight home from training to sit in my hotel room and pour out all of my papers and try to make everything work. Knowing what books I had, knowing what resources I had, and knowing what kind of time I would have to make all this work. It was a huge challenge, and ultimately I've come to a course that not only am I satisfied with, but I also feel I have the power to adjust. And so if I don't like it this year, I can make changes for next year. So here's what my time prepping and planning looked like.
Good morning, everyone. This is the first day of my IB training, and here I am in this monster huge hotel room with Moriarty, who decided to come with me. So, hey everyone.
It has been kind of grueling because everything has changed so much.
Okay, I'm not kidding. The very first session that I went to, the instructor put up the stages of grief and helped us walk through our grieving over the loss of the old curriculum because it's that different. And it was hard! Hug, say hi to everyone back home. Hi everyone! The air conditioning keeps turning on and off and on and off and on and off every 90 seconds. It's gonna drive me crazy. So I had to take a break and draw something because I was going a little bit nuts. So meet Ted Kujar! Yay! He's gonna go on my wall when I get back to my classroom. Okay, Moriarty, let's say you had to cut one work from the curriculum. Which one do you think I should cut? Anytime. I can do this! I can do this! Why did they have to get rid of all my favorite parts? Dante, get me through this. Okay, so I think this is going to work. I've had to make some sacrifices in some places, but I think I kind of have together at least enough to start with. And if I really hate it, you know what? I can change it again in a year, and that'll be okay.
It was kind of a crazy time. Now, I'm going to go ahead and lay out for you the key differences between the previous program and the new program. Previously, the course was divided into 4 distinct sections. One focused on world literature, one focused on genre study, one focused on intense analysis, and one was schools free choice. There were also assessments that matched those 4 sections. There were 2 internally assessed orals, one which matched the schools free choice, and one which matched the close analysis section. There was also a world literature essay, which went with the world literature section of the course, and there were 2 paper tests at the end of the course, which fit the genre section. In short, each semester of the course was focused on preparing for one type of assessment, although there were some similar skills being developed all the way through. Now, all of that is kind of blown up. As before, there are a certain number of texts required, and the text must be from multiple authors, multiple time periods, multiple locations, and a few have to be works in translation, but now they can be anywhere in the course. No particular text is prepping for one particular assessment. In other words, the student may use any of the works on any of the assessments, within however the teacher manages to structure the course. This is both incredibly freeing and kind of complicated, and it's a little bit of a challenge for the teacher to make this work in the most effective way. The students may not reuse texts on multiple assessments, but they may choose whichever text they like. There are certainly pros and cons to this. The pro is that there's a lot more flexibility, and if a student really loves a text, he or she can use that for an assessment. The con is that there might be some need to steer students towards the right texts for certain assessments. For instance, I'd feel a little uncomfortable if a student chose a text they read 2 years ago for an assessment that they're taking right now. The assessments themselves are also very different. In the past, the 2 internal assessments, one had lots of range of creativity. Individual oral presentation allowed the student to really create any sort of structure he or she wanted. I had students who performed songs, did interpretive dance, put on plays, baked cakes, did fashion shows, all these brilliant creative ways of exploring the literature. Makeup tutorials, fishing shows, board games, you name it, my students did it. And I loved that so much, and that is no more. So while I can still do some creative things within the course, there's no longer that open-ended creative assessment. I also deeply miss the individual oral commentary, which, although it was extremely hard for the students, was an opportunity for them to really demonstrate their skills. They would pull a poem out of an envelope and then have 20 minutes to look at it, and then 10 minutes to talk about it. And boy, some of those analyses were some of the best things I've ever heard in teaching. I missed that fantastic showcase of student skill. Now there's only one internal assessment, which makes it a lot easier to schedule and saves a lot of teacher-student time. In it, a student talks about how 2 of the texts that they've studied reflect a certain global issue. One thing that I'm very pleased with is the fact that the essay process is so much simpler. The former essay process with the student presentation of the historical background that didn't really have anything to do with the essay, the reflective statement that didn't really fit with the essay, the long drawn-out editing process, which was always a thorn in my flesh, all that is gone. And now there's much more streamlined and simplified writing process. The sort of writing process you would expect from a traditional essay. And I'm glad of that. The 2 papers at the end, the 2 big tests, are also pretty different. One used to be 2 passages, and the student could select one and then write about it for 2 hours. An analytical essay of a passage they'd not seen before. Now, the student has 2 passages, but the 2 passages could be anything. Before it was always a piece of poetry and a piece of prose. Now, it could be a graphic novel, it could be a piece of poetry, it could be a piece of nonfiction, it could be really anything. And the student must write about both passages with less time. That's going to make the student need to be a bit more succinct and a bit more to the point. There's also the added benefit that I need to teach more analytical skills in other types than just poetry and simple prose. I'm excited to spend a little bit more time with graphic novels, something that's a requirement considering that they could potentially be on this test. The other paper is in some ways very similar to the previous one, although it isn't focused on one particular type or genre. Instead, it's open to, again, any book that the student has read. Throughout this whole process, we're also going to be doing portfolios now, which allow us to retain and reflect upon what we've done with these books, these texts. This is going to be a little bit tricky to do, but could be very beneficial. I'm excited about the idea of incorporating some reflective journals into the reading process. And because the texts chosen are in some ways more flexible than they've previously been. I'm excited to play around with the potential for student choice in the texts. So that's where we stand. Lots of changes, and only time will tell how well all this plays out. But I know with these awesome students that I've got, we will have a good time, we will learn some cool stuff, and we will delve deep in the world of literature. And together we'll all figure it out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, or I'll see you in my classroom as we start the new IB curriculum. Bye-bye.
This is dinner. So I tried to make sure that I brought a good mix of reading materials for the downtime, including great classics like Dante's Paradiso, which is always a good reread, and things like The Complete He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, comic strips from the newspaper, which is also always a good read.